At my wife's company holiday party, her coworker called her Lolo Bear, the nickname she swore only I had ever used. The whole table laughed. That was the moment I realized I wasn't jealous. I was the joke. My name is Rowan. I'm 34. And I live in Chicago. I work in claims analytics for an insurance company, which basically means I spend my days catching patterns people swear aren't there. The irony is not lost on me. At home, I was apparently the last person to notice the pattern sitting right in front of me. Or maybe I noticed it and just kept letting my wife convince me I was seeing things. Claire and I had been married for 6 years. She was 33, smart, sharp, and good at making a room turn toward her when she spoke. She worked in corporate marketing for a mid-sized company downtown, the kind with glass conference rooms, branded fleece jackets, and people who said things like, "Circle back," without irony. From the outside, our marriage looked normal. We had a 2-bedroom condo, a shared Costco membership, a dog named Maple, and a Sunday routine where I made coffee while Claire folded laundry on the couch with a true crime documentary playing in the background. We argued sometimes, sure, but mostly about normal things. Dishes, her work hours, my tendency to go quiet. Instead of saying what bothered me, the nickname started during our first year of marriage. Claire got the flu so badly that she cried because the humidifier ran out of water and she couldn't find the remote. I came home from Walgreens with soup, tissues, cough drops, and one of those ugly fleece blankets with bears on it because it was the only soft blanket left near the checkout. She was wrapped in it on the couch, red-nosed and miserable, and I said, "There's my little Lolo Bear." She groaned and threw a tissue at me. "Never say that in front of anyone," she said. "Then it's ours." I told her after that it became one of those stupid private marriage things. I didn't say it often, mostly when she was half asleep, or when she was anxious, or when I wanted to make her smile without making a big production out of it. She always acted embarrassed, but she would tuck her face into my shoulder and say, "You're so annoying," which meant she liked it, or I thought it did. Miles showed up in our marriage slowly. That's the part people don't understand when they ask why I didn't react sooner. He didn't walk into our lives wearing a flashing sign that said he was there too. Wreck my home. At first, he was just a name in stories. Miles saved the Denver deck. Miles said Grant is going to love this campaign. Miles found this ridiculous meme about client calls. Then he was in photos. Then he was in texts. Then he was in her calendar more often than I was. The first time I heard someone call him her work husband, it was in an Instagram caption from one of Claire's coworkers. Claire was standing beside Miles in front of a step and repeat at some marketing event holding a plastic flute of champagne. The caption said, "Office power couple. Sorry, Rowan and Tessa. Tesha was Miles' wife." I showed Claire the post while we were eating takeout at the kitchen island. "That's weird, right?" I asked. Claire barely looked up from her noodles. "It's just office slang. It says sorry, Rowan and Tessa, because people know it's not real." She laughed like I was being cute. "He isn't my husband. It's a joke." "Then why does he know more about your week than I do?" That made her chopsticks pause. "Okay." she said slowly. I need you to not make my workplace about your insecurity. I remember that exact sentence because it worked. I shut up. I didn't want to be the controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife having male coworkers. I didn't want to be the guy who confused ambition with cheating or networking, with flirting. So I told myself she was right. But the pattern kept forming. Slack pings after 10 p.m. Her phone turned face down when she came into the kitchen. Calendar blocks labeled client. Dinner, prep sync, postmortem, and Denver QBR, a steakhouse charge that she said was for a client meal, even though she couldn't remember which client had been there. Uber receipts after midnight. A photo from a work trip where Miles was barely cropped out of the frame, his watch and sleeve still visible near her shoulder. Every time I asked, she had an answer. You don't understand client-facing roles. Do you want me to be successful? Or do you want me home by 9 o'clock like a teenager? You're projecting something onto a normal professional friendship. Once, after Miles sent her a heart emoji under a late-night meme, I asked, why is he texting you hearts at midnight? Claire sighed like she was tired of raising me. It's a reaction, Rowan, not a proposal. It still bothers me. You don't get to punish me because you're insecure. I hated how quickly those words made me retreat. I would start with a specific concern and somehow end up apologizing for how I brought it up. Claire was good at that. She could take a direct question and turn it into a referendum on whether I supported her career, respected her autonomy, or understood modern workplace culture. I vented to my sister, Nadine, once while sitting in my car outside the grocery store. Even then, I softened everything. He texts her a lot, I said. What does a lot mean? She asked. Late. Weekends. Work stuff, mostly. Mostly, I rubbed my forehead. I don't know. I don't want to be unfair. Nadine was quiet for a second. Then she said, would you believe this story if someone else told it to you? That's not fair, I said. You don't know her like I do. I believed that when I said it, or I needed to. By the time Claire's company holiday party came around in December, I already hated the idea of going. She acted like my reluctance was proof I didn't care about her career. It matters that you show up, she said, standing in our bathroom or while putting in earrings I bought her for our 4th anniversary. I'm showing up with that face. What face? The face where you've already decided you're better than everyone. I looked at her reflection in the mirror. I've never said that. You don't have to. The party was at a hotel downtown. One of those ballrooms with gold lighting, white tablecloths, and a cocktail hour. Upstairs on a rented rooftop bar, there were branded drink tickets at check-in, open bar wristbands, badge, lanyards people kept forgetting to take off, a photo booth with props that said things like Q for Survivor and past, appetizers that were somehow both tiny and impossible to eat politely. Claire was in her element. She moved through the room like she had rehearsed it. Laugh, touch someone's elbow, introduce me, pivot to a client story, laugh. Again, I shook hands with people who said, so you're Rowan? In a tone I couldn't read. Then Miles appeared. He was tall, good-looking in that polished corporate way, with a navy suit, no tie, and the kind of smile that made people forgive interruptions. He clasped my shoulder like we were old friends. Rowan, he said, man, finally, I feel like I know you already. That landed. Wrong, but I smiled anyway. Miles, I said, same. Claire laughed too. Quickly, behave. Always, Miles said. Looking at her. At dinner, we were seated at a round table with Miles, a few coworkers, 2 spouses, and Claire's manager, Grant. The conversation was loud and harmless at first. Someone complained about a client who loved scheduling Friday calls. Someone else made a joke about the photo. Booth props. Brielle, one of Claire's coworkers, had been enjoying the wine and seemed determined to make everyone feel included by explaining office gossip. None of the spouses understood. Then, Miles leaned across the table with his champagne flute and said, Lolo Bear, come on, you have to tell them what you said on the call with Denver. For a brief moment, everything in me stopped. Claire froze too. It was fast. Almost nothing. Her smile paused before it snapped back into place. The table laughed. Not the awkward laugh people do when someone says something too intimate. Not the surprised laugh of hearing a weird nickname for the first time. It was familiar, comfortable, like Miles had repeated a running joke. I looked at him. What did you just call her? Claire's heel pressed hard against my shoe under the table. Rowan, she said, still smiling. Don't. It's just a joke. Miles lifted both hands, playing innocent. My bad. Office nickname. Didn't mean to step on toes. Brielle laughed into her glass and said, oh my God, I forgot Rowan was here. The second she said it, her face changed. I mean, because you're so quiet tonight, she added quickly. Claire's smile turned sharp. Exactly. He's taking everything in. I sat there, with the sound of clinking glasses and holiday music pressing against my skull. Miles's hand rested on the back of Claire's chair. Claire kept looking at him before answering jokes, like her face was waiting for his permission. Grant pretended to be deeply interested in his salad. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a drink. I didn't ask the whole table how long they had been laughing at me. I stayed through dessert. That's probably the part Claire misunderstood most. She thought my silence meant I could still be managed. Later, at the rooftop bar, I pulled her aside near the heaters. The city looked clean and cold. From up there, all glass and lights. Inside, people were laughing behind the doors, their voices muffled by the wind. How does Miles know that name? I asked. Claire wrapped her coat tighter around herself. Can we not do this here? I have never heard anyone else call you that. It came up once. How? I don't know, Rowan. Maybe I told a story. What story? She looked past me toward the bar. This is what I mean. You're interrogating me at my work event. I'm asking why another man knows a name you told me was ours. Maybe because you don't come to my work stuff enough to know my life. That was such a neat little reversal that for a second I almost followed it. I almost started defending how many events I had attended, how many late nights I had accepted, how much space I had tried to give her. Instead, I said, that didn't answer my question. Her face hardened. Then maybe you don't want an answer. Maybe you want a reason to punish me. On the Uber ride home, Claire got angry. First, she always did when she was afraid I might be angry for a valid reason. You embarrass me tonight, she said, typing aggressively on her phone. I barely said anything. Exactly. You made it obvious. Made what? Obvious? That you are judging everyone, that you don't respect that I have a life outside you. Miles' name flashed on her phone before she turned the screen away. I looked out the window at the frozen sidewalks and said, nothing. At home, she went straight to the bathroom and turned on the shower. I stood in the kitchen in my dress shoes, listening to the water run. Our shared iPad was charging on the counter beside the mail. We used it for recipes, streaming, and FaceTime calls with my parents. It was logged into our shared Apple ID because we had set it up years ago and never thought about it again. The screen lit up. A Slack notification preview appeared at the top. Miles, tonight was close. He looked like he finally got it. That sentence did what months of excuses couldn't. It made me stop negotiating with reality. I didn't unlock her phone. I didn't install anything. I didn't guess passwords. I picked up the iPad we both used and opened what was already synced to it. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set it flat on the counter. At first, it was just fragments, message previews, calendar entries, photos from synced albums Claire had forgotten existed. Then the fragments lined up. There were Outlook calendar blocks titled Client, dinner that had been edited after the fact, Uber history showing rides from restaurants to Miles's neighborhood when Claire had told me she was coming straight home from downtown, a hotel, folio from Denver with a rooftop lounge, charge at 12:47 a.m. and room service, breakfast for two, a pending credit card, charge from a steakhouse on a night she told me the whole team was there, even though the receipt showed 2 entrees and 1 bottle of wine. I made a folder on my laptop called Taxes 2025. That name still makes me feel sick. I started taking screenshots. I photographed the iPad screen with timestamps visible. I saved calendar histories and receipt emails. I didn't feel powerful. I felt like I was cutting open my own life and labeling the organs. The messages were worse than the receipts. Claire had told Miles I was sweet but clueless, she said. I made her feel like she was shrinking back into the wife version of herself. She told him he made her feel seen. Then I found the nickname. Claire, he still calls me Lolo Bear like we're cute. Miles, it fits you better when I say it. Claire, don't. That makes me want to leave work and come find you. Miles, let's not make tonight heavy. I had to walk away from the counter after that. I stood in the hallway outside our bedroom, breathing through my nose while the shower kept running. Maple came over and leaned against my leg. I put my hand on her head and tried not to make a sound. Over the next few days, I became very good at acting normal. Not warm, not affectionate, just normal enough that Claire thought I was sulking instead of planning. I found more apartment listings near Miles's office saved in Claire's browser. Searches like how to tell husband you're in love with someone else and divorce before or after holidays. A draft message to Miles that said, after you talk to Tessa, I don't want to hide anymore. I know the timing is awful, but I can't keep pretending Rowan is my future. But Miles' messages were careful, slippery. He never directly said he would leave his wife. He said things like, you know how I feel, but real. Life is complicated and Tessa can't handle this during the school year. And let's not rush the real world part. One line stuck with me. Miles, you're my escape. Don't make me turn this into logistics. That was when the truth started taking shape in my head. Claire thought she was in a tragic love story. Miles sounded like a man protecting his actual life while borrowing pieces of mine. I contacted a divorce lawyer named Vivian. Her office was downtown 12 floors up with a view of the river and a receptionist who offered me water in a voice so calm it almost made me cry. Vivian was 41, direct, and impossible to impress with outrage. I brought a flash drive, printed receipts, screenshots, and a timeline. She read quietly while I sat across from her, gripping a paper cup of coffee I didn't want. Finally, she looked up and said, "Did you access anything you were not authorized to access?" No. Shared iPad, shared accounts. Things synced already. Good. From this point forward, do not improvise. I want her to. No, I know. She will, Vivian said. On paper. I let out a laugh that didn't sound like me. That's it. No. That is the beginning. You are not going to empty accounts. You are not going to post online. You are not going to contact his wife directly. You are not going to turn this into a revenge fantasy that cost you leverage. So what do I do? Document. Separate what you are legally allowed to separate. Communicate calmly. Let me be the loud part. Then she said something I wrote down later because I needed to remember it. Revenge feels loud. Good divorce strategy is quiet. Under Vivian's advice, I redirected my direct deposit. I moved only the portion of money I was legally allowed to move. I froze joint credit card activity where permitted and left a clean ledger. I canceled our anniversary trip to Sedona. The Sedona cancellation broke me in a way the messages had not. Maybe because the trip still belonged to the version of us I had been trying to save. I listened to the travel agents. Voicemail twice. Your anniversary package has been canceled. Airline credits will be issued according to the fair rules. I sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room and cried quietly. Not because I wanted to go to Sedona, but because canceling it made the marriage feel officially over in a practical, calendar-based way. Claire noticed the change. Of course she did. People who lie for a living inside their own house become very sensitive to shifts in temperature. She started being sweet. One night, she made my favorite pasta, the one with sausage and too much garlic, and put a bowl in front of me like a peace offering. You've been cold, she said. I've been tired. I feel like you're punishing me without telling me the charge. I looked at her, then really looked. She had no idea how close that sentence came to being funny. Funny way to put it, I said. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm tired. A few nights later, she suggested dinner out so we could reset. Her word, reset, like our marriage was a frozen laptop. I want us to have a mature conversation, she said. No accusations, no defensiveness, just trust. Okay, I said. She chose a quiet restaurant in Lincoln Park with dim lights and small tables. She wore the anniversary earrings again. She ordered wine before I could say I didn't want any. For 2 minutes, il est here. Talk. She said she felt judged. She said I had withdrawn instead of expressing myself. She said my reaction at the holiday party made her feel unsafe in her own professional community. I need us to speak from a place of trust, she said, folding her hands on the table. Then start. I said. She blinked. I am starting. No. Start with Miles. Her face changed, but only for a second. Rowan. Start with Denver. Or the steakhouse. Or the Uber rides to his neighborhood. Or Lolo Bear. The color drained out of her cheeks. I don't know what you think you found. I found enough. She looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware of other people. No one was paying attention. That was the thing, the most devastating conversation of my life was happening 3. FT from a man explaining craft beer to his date. It wasn't what you think. Claire said. I know. I said. It was worse. Her eyes filled. Worse. You. Let me be the only person in the room who didn't know. She shook her head. That's not fair. Brielle said she forgot I was there. She had too much to drink. Miles used my nickname for you in front of your coworkers. It got out of hand. That's not an answer. She pressed her napkin to her mouth. I was confused. No, I said. I was confused. You were busy. That finally cracked the polished version of her. She leaned forward, whispering hard. You have no idea what it felt like. I was lonely. You were always analyzing everything. Miles listened. I asked you directly. Because you were suspicious. Because you were lying. Her tears came then, but I had seen enough by that point to understand tears weren't always remorse. Sometimes they were frustration leaking out because a tactic had failed. I wanted to tell you when I understood what I was feeling, she said. You understood enough to search apartments. Her mouth opened, closed. You went through my things, our shared iPad, our shared accounts, our marriage. She looked angry then, not guilty. Angry. You're making me sound like a monster because you're hurt. I'm making you sound like someone who lied to me. Are you trying to punish me? No, I said. I'm ending this. She stared at me like I had spoken in another language. When we got home, there was a man waiting near the lobby entrance with a padded envelope, not hiding behind a plant, not dramatic. Just a tired-looking process server in a winter coat holding paperwork like he would rather be anywhere else. Claire saw him look at us, then at the envelope, and her hand tightened around her purse strap. What is this? She asked. The man confirmed her name and handed her the papers. She stared at them, then at me. You planned this. I said, you planned, Denver. I planned the exit. Her face crumpled, but there was anger behind it. You sat through dinner knowing this was waiting. You asked for calm. I said, this is calm. Upstairs, she unraveled. She called. Miles from the kitchen island. The same place where she had spent years, convincing me I was insecure. He didn't answer. She called again, then again. Pick up, she whispered. Miles, pick up. I stood near the hallway, not close enough to crowd her, not far enough to pretend I wasn't witnessing it. Finally, her phone buzzed. She read the text and went still. What did he say? I asked. She didn't answer, so I looked at her face and knew before she said it. He says I need to stop contacting him outside official channels until HR sorts things out. She sounded like the words physically hurt. Then she handed me the phone like some part of her wanted me to explain it differently. Miles, please. Don't contact me outside official channels right now. This has gotten out of hand. I think we both let the boundaries blur, and I need to protect my family and my job. Claire whispered. He said he loved me. I looked at her. Did he let you say it first? She crossed a physical line then. It wasn't severe, but the sudden loss of control seemed to embarrass both of us. Maple barked from the living room. I didn't move toward her. I didn't shout. I'm going to the guest room, I said. All communication goes through Vivian and Les. It's about Maple or the condo. The next week was messy, but not in the way movies make it look. There was no dramatic confrontation on the lawn. Tessa didn't show up at our door. I didn't send a revenge email to the whole company. Reality was smaller and colder. Vivian communicated with Claire's attorney. Evidence was preserved properly. Some of the work-related material ended up where it needed to go, through legal channels, because company expenses and travel conduct were tangled into the timeline. HR didn't care that my feelings were hurt. They cared about policy, liability, misleading calendar entries, and whether client expenses had been used to cover personal time. Grant, Claire's manager, suddenly cared very much about details he had ignored when Claire and Miles were producing good work. There were questions about the Denver hotel folio, the edited calendar, entries, the client dinners with no clients, and why two high performers had been allowed to operate like a private unit for so long. Brielle messaged me once from a number I didn't recognize. This is Brielle from Claire's office. I'm sorry if this is weird. I honestly thought you knew about the nickname. Everyone thought you knew. I stared at that message for a long time. I typed back. Knew what exactly? 3 dots. Appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Just that they were close. Too close. Probably. I'm sorry. That night was awkward, and I made it worse. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was just confirmation that the room had known enough to laugh. Miles protected himself exactly the way Vivian predicted. He told HR that Claire had misread the relationship. He used words like boundaries, misunderstanding, and emotional dependency. He said he never encouraged her to compromise her marriage. He said he was committed to Tessa and their family. Maybe Tessa believed him. Maybe she didn't. I never contacted her. Vivian was clear about that. And by then, I had learned the value of not grabbing every match just because I wanted to watch something burn. Claire found out through the fallout that Miles had been telling Tessa she was just an intense coworker who leaned on him too much. To Claire, he had been the man waiting for the right timing. To his wife, Claire was workplace noise. To himself, apparently he was the victim of a professional friendship that went too far. Claire called me from her mother's house 2 weeks after she was served. I almost didn't answer, but Maple was with her that night, and I worried something had happened. Instead, I heard Claire crying. He's saying I made it up, she said. I leaned against the counter in my rental application folder, surrounded by boxes I hadn't taped yet. Who? You know who? I said. Nothing. He's telling them I exaggerated. He said he never promised me anything. Did he? That's cruel. It's a question. She was quiet except for her breathing. I gave up my marriage for him, she said. Said, you risked your marriage for him. I'm the one who gave it up after I found out. Her tone shifted. It always did. When sympathy wasn't coming. You're really going to let him destroy us? That was the last manipulation that still had any muscle memory in me. Make Miles the villain. Make her self-confused. Make me the one holding the weapon. No, I said. You don't get to make him the main character in what you did. I made a mistake. You made hundreds of decisions and called them one mistake because that sounds more forgivable. She started crying harder. You're so cold now. I'm Claire now. You're confusing the two. The divorce was an instant. There was no magical full victory. There were attorney emails, financial disclosures, arguments about furniture, and a dog visitation schedule that made me feel ridiculous and grateful at the same time. Maple stayed with me during the week and with Claire every other weekend until we could settle something more permanent. I moved into a smaller rental in Ravenswood with old hardwood floors, loud radiators, and a kitchen barely big enough for one person. The first morning there, I woke up and reached for my phone, expecting the old reflex to check whether Claire had come home late or turned her screen face down or rewritten last night's story before breakfast. Then I remembered she wasn't there. The quiet didn't feel happy, not at first. It felt empty and raw, like a room after furniture has been dragged out. But it was honest. No. One was standing in my kitchen telling me I had imagined the scratch marks on the floor. I started therapy because Vivian, who was apparently incapable of giving bad advice, told me legal distance and emotional distance were not the same thing. My therapist asked me what part hurt most, and I surprised myself by not saying the broken marriage. It's that she made me stop trusting my own eyes. I said, that was the deepest betrayal. Claire didn't just lie, she recruited my best qualities against me. My patience, my desire to be fair, my fear of becoming controlling. She made me think that asking for basic honesty was a character flaw. Claire's reputation at work suffered not because I gave a speech or posted screenshots, but because evidence has a way of making polished stories harder to maintain. Miles kept his marriage, at least from what I heard, but he lost the untouchable office image he had enjoyed. Grant suddenly became very interested in professional boundaries. Riel stopped putting work spouse captions on Instagram. Claire tried one more time months later to frame the whole thing as an incident that just happened to us. We were exchanging Maple in a grocery store parking lot. She looked tired, thinner, and less shiny than she used to look walking into those hotel ballrooms. I hate how this all happened, she said. I clipped Maple's leash onto my belt loop and opened the back door of my car. It Didn't happen to us, I said. You made choices. I found out those are different. She looked like she wanted to argue, but there was nowhere useful for the argument to go. So she just nodded. That was the closest thing to closure I got. Not an apology that fixed anything. Not a dramatic confession. Just a moment where she didn't correct my reality. I deleted the Sedona reminder from my calendar. The week our divorce became final. It had been sitting there like a ghost appointment, popping up every time I searched future dates. I pressed delete and waited for some huge feeling to arrive. It didn't. I made coffee. I fed Maple, opened my work laptop, and started reviewing a file where someone insisted a pattern was just coincidence. This time, I trusted myself the first time I saw it. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.